Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Kirschenbaum. Thanks for joining us today. Today's presentation in the Central Station series is Statewide Central Station. They're located in Staten Island, and they have a nationwide footprint. They've been growing tremendously over the last number of years. You have their chief officers, Pam and Steve, whose pictures you can see already. And I'll be turning this over to them in a moment. This is to remind you, all webinars are being recorded. All webinars will be posted on the K&K website. Give us a few days. My daughter happens to be on vacation, so she does it when she gets back. But we'll figure out how to do it, unless Steve wants to help us figure it out how to do it. So it'll be up there, and you'll be able to see it again. Of course, Pam and Stephen will be sharing their contact information, and you'll be able to contact them directly after the presentation to do any follow-up information that you might need. Questions will be handled at the end of the presentation, most likely. Type them in. I'll read them to Pam and Steve as they go along, or probably at the end of the presentation. So we have another presentation tomorrow and one next week, and I'm looking forward to wrapping this series up. I'm already getting requests by the Central Stations to do this annually, so we'll have to see. I'm sure we will. But at any rate, let's get started with Steve and Pam, and I'm going to turn over right now to Stephen. You can now put your screen up, Steve, and you guys are at bat.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. Give me 1 second.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, we're good. Everyone sees my screen?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Very good. Thank you. I'm Steve Coppola, co-president of Statewide Central Station. Been in the industry for about 30 years. Probably started off, as many that are probably on this webinar, as that attic guy. So I started off in the houses doing alarms, doing those installations. So I have a good understanding of what those technicians are going through in the field, and been with Statewide since the beginning of 2001.
Thank you, and thank you, Ken, for your introduction. My name is Pamela Columbia. I have been in the business about 25 years. I started part-time, and I became involved really by growing up with my father, who was in the alarm industry, and really loving it and understanding it. I have a passion mostly for the growth of the company, finance, operations, HR, and Steve and I are also related, brother and sister, and luckily we work very well together. So thanks again, Ken, for having us. We appreciate the opportunity. Okay, a little bit about who we are. Stephen and I are just going to go back and forth on some different slides, and we'll get a little bit more into this later on in the presentation. So we were established in 2001. Even before that, the Statewide name has been around since 1981 from our predecessor, Frank Angelata. We're third-party wholesale monitoring only, which is very important. A lot of central stations also, they monitor their own systems that they install. We really work hand in hand with our fire alarm installers, burglar alarm installers, video installers to provide that third-party service. And we like to call ourselves installing partners because we work together to provide that service and try and make it seamless for the dealer themselves. We have 3 redundant disaster recovery locations, which of course in this climate are essential. Stephen will get a little bit into that later on in the slide. We monitor nationwide, which not many central stations have the ability to do. We are FDNY approved. Ken had mentioned that's a really big part of our business, and we're very knowledgeable in it. We'll get into more details as well later on. We're TMA 5 Diamond certified. In addition, this year we actually won the 2023 TMA Central Station of the Year Award for medium-sized central station. We're very proud of that, specifically because of our staff. They have a lot to do with that. and I'll talk about them later also, but we have staff that have been with us for years, very loyal, very dedicated, so we appreciate them. We're members of a lot of organizations and have been throughout the years, and I think that's what helps us with our growth and our knowledge. Specifically, Stephen is very involved with TMA. He was just recently on a panel regarding some video monitoring. New York Fire Alarm Association, I've become very involved and I'm on the board. And it's important to stay involved in these industries so we're up to date with all the latest technology and information that exists. And then we can pass that along to our dealers, of course. Currently, we have over 100,000 connections, growing rapidly by the day, which is very exciting. And our installing partners or our dealers, we're up to about 1,000. And again, you know, we continue to grow every day. We're very proud of that.
So some of the services that Statewide provides to our dealers, and these aren't necessarily all of them, but some of them I just wanted to pinpoint that we do. Of course, cell IP monitoring and digital monitoring, which is the standard. About that, we can handle any cell or IP communicator that's out there. So if you're out in the field and you want to use a certain IP or a cell communicator, there's a almost 100% chance that we can use it. If it's a newer device out there that might have just came out to the market, you would just let us know and we can probably integrate it very quickly. I think recently we just integrated a new one from NAPCO also. I think we were part of their beta on that. So NAPCO's coming out with a new IP communicator as well, I think using SecureNet platform. Elevator monitoring. We do the standard elevator monitoring that people have been doing for years, which usually is just a voice call. Someone presses a button within the elevator, and of course we come on and dispatch or call up accordingly. New York has new regulations that now require video look-in and two-way text messaging. So we have that capability of doing them now also. We're working with a few different providers at this time that are the leaders in that. That's to help out those who are perhaps deaf in the elevator, where we can still communicate with them via text message and we can look down and make sure everything is okay. Fire alarm monitoring, we're going to get into a little bit more, but as Pam mentioned, we are very heavy in the New York City market on New York City fire alarm monitoring. We do it, of course, throughout the US. We are licensed wherever requires license throughout the United States to do any type of burg or fire alarm monitoring for that. Interactive video monitoring, I'm going to get into a little bit more, but not just interactive. We do a whole sort of video monitoring at this point, whether it be on-demand video monitoring, where an alarm is actually going off, using analytics to get those alarm conditions. It's becoming a big growth within our industry, and we've been doing it for probably over close to 15 years already. So we do it well, and we'll talk a little bit about that also. Area of refuge. It's a New York City thing. I think Florida's, we've seen a lot of traffic in that. It's similar to elevator monitoring, which is a location within the building that someone can go to and contact us and we can dispatch accordingly. Managed access control. We work with some partners in order to do managed access control, including upon a door forced open, door left open, where we can get signals and act accordingly. I know there are a few alarm companies out there, or access control companies are pretty much using their access control as their alarm system. And we can monitor that also. PERS monitoring and mobile PERS monitoring, very big. We've seen right next to video as the biggest growth within the industry and within ourselves on the personal emergency response and the PERS devices. Mostly on the mobile PERS devices, where we could get the signal, see the GPS location, and dispatch accordingly, use our database to make sure that by the location, the GPS location, we could find out where the person is, track them, and make sure. Sprinkler monitoring, we do utility environmental monitoring, water, temperature, and so forth. SAS model, software as a service. We do also offer this to dealers and municipalities that want a central station where they have their own operators. They don't want to sub it out, but they don't want the hassle of getting receivers, software, patches, network, phone, We provide a software as a service model where they can take a portion of our slice of our system and actually do their own monitoring. And what's good about that too is that they can do it certain times if they want, let's say at night, it comes to us, and days go to them, weekends. Also, if it is a disaster recovery, which has happened, we can actually take over for them. IoT monitoring, we have the ability now to pretty much take any signal and turn it into an alarm condition or a monitoring event, whether it be email, a text, webhooks that are out there. We have full API integrations that we can pretty much communicate to any device or any panel out there in order to be able to monitor them. And we're seeing a lot of traction in that also.
We're very proud of our management and staff. Like I said earlier, we've had employees with us since the beginning, whether it's operators that now are supervisors, that then became managers, some became technicians. And it's very important to have such loyal individuals as part of your staff. We really take pride in that. We like our employees. We create a positive culture for them. In today's environment, it's very essential to have the right crew in place. So we're in security, we're in life safety. We have to trust our team to ensure they're doing the right thing and they have the company's back as much as we do. Just a picture of a few of them, but what we do is we like to specialize our employees in certain divisions so they take accountability for that division. Specifically, some of the items that we specialize in, quality control, we have one person full-time managing it with a team who is able to look at our signal traffic, spot check recordings, look at what the operators are doing daily to make sure we're doing everything the right way and we're being proactive instead of reactive, which is obviously vital in this industry. Training, we started with one training person, now we have a whole team. We're very proud of it. We want to make sure the training is redundant, and not only training for when we hire new employees and we onboard new employees, but ongoing training. This industry is always changing. It's very difficult to be an operator because not having experience sometimes sets you back. So we feel it's vital for our training team to make sure they meet at least monthly with all the operators to talk about anything new in the industry or anything specific that we need to address as a central station. IT, you can never have enough people on your IT team. Started out mostly as Steven, and then we just grew the IT team to make sure we're, again, ahead of the curve and we're looking out for our clients. HR, in these days, you need an HR person in charge. You need an HR team. Our HR director is almost like our internal therapist as well for our operators. It's important to always have someone to go to talk to as an employee and for them to always feel comfortable with their team and their bosses. Video, because we've been doing so much and getting more into it lately, we're developing our own video team with someone accountable, a manager accountable just for the video monitoring, so that our dealers have a go-to person to talk to in the event of an issue or to set up the systems. And of course, FDNY, we have a whole team dedicated as we've grown throughout the years. We have a manager and then several supervisors within that team that really communicates frequently with the fire department, you know, updates on any TV60s or anything relevant in the industry. The team's able to distinguish different signals, and with the experience we have, we feel this crew really provides the best service.
Yeah, as Pam mentioned, a lot of teams, and we're able to segment a lot of times these teams, as Pam mentioned, a video, PERS team, video team, because they're really specialized, some of the monitoring we do. So we try to segment them as much as possible. And them to get trained on that and know that portion of the industry very well. And as Pam said, we try to be very proactive in the training. Of course, there's things that come up throughout the day that has come through my desk where an operator might have not seen something or made a mistake, and we take that very seriously. We bring it to a trainer, and we make sure then all operators are then doing that ongoing training. So if we see someone has an issue, we make sure all operators are then aware of that issue and that it's not something we possibly need to do a continued training for it. So we take that very seriously with our staff. The facility, so this is our main facility. As Pam mentioned, we have 3 locations right now for redundancy. This is our main headquarters located in Staten Island, New York. New York City Fire approved monitoring. Redundant facility, as mentioned. We have 2 other locations, And we also have a co-location facility that we can actually close by to the Staten Island location, where we can actually bring our local operators over. As other offices are taking over traffic, we can be up and running very quickly if need be. High security, when we chose the location over 7 years already, maybe even more, we took it for the security reasons, with the guard booths outside, underground utilities, also transportation for our operators to make sure we can get public transportation in for the operators, and close by airports and hotels that we have. Our best standby generators, picture of our generators. We can be up and running. They're diesel generators, so we don't rely on natural gas just in case something goes off at the pump facility, because then they rely on generators to keep the gas flowing. We run on diesel generators, and we have 2 redundant generators that probably could last us close to 3 weeks with the fuel that we have, if we ever needed to.
So our facility, here's a couple of photos of our main facility here in Staten Island. As you can see, it's very large. When Stephen and I, it was 10 years ago, which time flies when you're having fun, decided to pick this location. What we liked about it is that we could design it the way we wanted to design it, and set it up in an ideal situation. So what we do is we put some offices, we knock down walls, we put offices around the corners, we put the main central station in the center. We have a dedicated conference room. A lot of times our dealers come here with their clients and it's their conference room. We're putting on a presentation together to show that seamless relationship. It's obviously large enough at this point, and just to address, I'm sure, the question that'll come up later, and we could talk about it more, we did not have to do any at-home monitoring specifically during COVID. We were very ahead of the curve. In February, we were already prepping for it. We had plenty of room to space out adequately and move people around accordingly. So I know there'll be some follow-up questions on that, but as you can see, our facility is we really get the best out of it, and our employees are happy coming here. It's designed well, the communication works really well, and we're able to expand as well. And the layout works nicely so that the managers and supervisors could really oversee the operators the right way, as they should. You don't want to micromanage too much, but you do need that supervisor and manager having the ability to chime in as needed from their office or from their cubicle. A lot of times the reason why we've been hiring, all the time, we're constantly hiring operators, and we have so much success because of the environment that we work in. It's nice to be able to come to work. It's a beautiful facility, and our employees really like it here. Just some of the installer benefits that we offer. Again, we want to stand out from the other central stations, and even though a lot of central stations offer similar benefits we do, these are some of the ones that we wanted to highlight. So technician remote and on-site services. We have dedicated operators, managers in our office that are able to troubleshoot while your technician is in the field and work with them to make sure we're receiving the appropriate signals, whether they need to reprogram it to a different receiver, whether the code isn't coming in correctly and they need to change, we need to change it on our side. There's different resources that we're able to give the technicians while they're in the field. While we're remote and they're in the field. In addition, we have technicians that are able to go on site and not only assist with programming certain communicators, but just to make sure that everything is working properly. So that's a service that comes up pretty frequently, specifically in New York City Fire, but really anywhere. If you're an installer and you take over a system and you're not necessarily familiar with the system, we have technicians that are able to help. We're also able to get certain equipment and program it correctly and be on site during an FDNY inspection if needed. Code and AHJ answers. We have NICET certified staff. We work with all the local authorities to be able to provide that knowledge. It's very important if you call your central station for them to have the answers. And if we don't have the answers, we'll make sure we get it to our dealers. Direct billing and collections, we've been doing more and more of. It's difficult for our alarm installers to have so many employees as far as collecting, making those calls, sending billing. So we've been trying to take on more of that for our dealers, and it's actually been working out very nicely. And lastly, FDNY filing and expediting to take over any accounts from another central station in New York City is very difficult. So we have a team dedicated to assist with that service.
So just a little more about installers and our the dealer network that we have. Of course, we have the smaller installers and the larger installers, and we work with all of them, of course. One thing on the smaller installers that we've had very good success with because of our hands-on is that we'll help you navigate that beginning. A lot of installers are first time out there. We meet them at these licensing courses. And they're out there for the first time, and all right, what should I use? Should I use this panel? Should I use that panel? Why should I use this? What should I avoid? What should I really dive into? What's hot now? So we'll help those dealers whether they have one account or thousands of accounts. But we have been very successful with the ones that are lower and don't have that much experience in the industry, just because of the knowledge and some of that one-on-one support that we have, that we work with them. Which goes into kind of what we have, technology, what are. So here's a picture of our server room right now. And what we have technical innovation with personal touch. So what does that really mean? It's important to make sure that we are always ahead of the curve. We know what's happening a year, 2 years down the road. If you don't plan for where the industry is going to be, we're going to be left behind. So we have to make sure, technically wise, we know where it is. Me and Pamela are on a lot of different committees, whether it be the Monitoring Association and Fire Department, learning about codes. Where do we need to be a year or two from now and start building to make sure we get there? But we also want to make sure that we always have that personal touch. So as we grow and as innovation gets there, and now there's more text messaging, or there's different ways to put accounts on or offline. We want to make sure that if you call our office also, that you have the options of speaking to that live person, speaking with your account rep, speaking with that person that could really help you out. As great as technology is, sometimes you need that personal touch, which we always want to be there for you. A little about video monitoring. As I said, we've seen very high growth in the video monitoring. And if you haven't been in video monitoring or you tried it and it wasn't in the last 2 years, I highly suggest you trying to look at it again. Over the last 2 or 3 years, the analytics have went from about maybe 50-50 shot that you're really catching someone and it's not a leaf or a shadow to pretty much 99% accuracy. What that does, it does a lot of different things. So before, when there was so many false alarms, your rates were higher because it caused more traffic at the central station. It also became almost a boy that cried wolf. So customers were like, all right, I went off again. It probably is not going to be the case. Now, because analytics are getting so much better and are better within the last 2 years, when that alarm goes off, most likely it is a person there. Whether it be an intrusion, we do loitering at different locations, a vehicle going one direction as opposed to another. We do a lot of analytic video monitoring that just wasn't possible to do 2-3 years ago, which, as I said, has also brought the price down. So once again, if you aren't doing video monitoring now, please reach out to me. We help with that also. We can help you with some of the analytics, or you can use your own analytics. We work with, of course, any manufacturer that has their own built-in analytics, and we also work with about 3 or 4 cloud-based analytics. And there's different reasons why you might want to use the analytics, whether it be edge-based or cloud-based, depending on your application. Are you using cell phones, so you want to use more edge, so there's not a lot of traffic going out? Are you doing more like advanced loitering and stuff, which needs more on the edge? So there's different scenarios why you would want to use different things. We do also stuff like video doorman and guard replacement. This is really good just because when you go in and you're actually replacing a guard or replacing, let's say, a doorman, it's immediate savings to the end user. And the multiples on that you can get for a monthly are pretty high. If you consider, let's say, a guard location where now there were 2 or 3 guards. Now alarm, we're getting the video signals, and maybe you only have 1 guard that now could roam around the area, go into the locations that we see movement in or if a person's in there. And we could talk down too. So there's two-way communication in a lot of these advanced video monitoring. But once again, if you aren't doing video monitoring now, please reach out to me. As I said, it's a lot easier than it's ever had been. And the quality of it is so much better that your customers will be happy with it. And it's a great RMR source. Remote access. We just actually came out with a new app within the last couple of weeks where your dealers can, of course, take on offline. We have the portal, of course, where you can get in and see all your accounts, see live view of any accounts, make changes as needed. One of the additional apps that we're coming out with within the next, going back to video monitoring, within the next probably month or two, is an app that will also allow you to arm and disarm your video system. So if you want to think of your alarm system, your camera system also has an alarm system, especially for outside, where you could arm and disarm your system, just like you would arm and disarm a actual alarm system. So this now allows those cameras, which are probably better now at motion detection than a lot of these motion detectors are, to be your alarm system as well, and to have that arm disarm function built into the app where you can actually see the video, see clips, and able to arm and disarm your system. SMS notification, we offer this as well. What we do is we send a link out as a text message to your customers. We do this on low priority signals as the customer wants. And then what happens is once you click the link, you can now see the signal came through. We know that you've clicked the link, so we know you've seen it. If you don't see it, we can now take other actions, meaning, all right, let's go down the list, let's notify the next person, and so forth. So we have SMS, enhanced SMS messaging for your customers as well. One thing that will be included in this, and I think probably within the next week or two, where we're actually offering this with our video services also. So the customer will get a text message with a link, and we're able to actually see their video, whether it be what went off and live view at the same time of what we're seeing with that. One note too, we also can share our video feed with emergency responders through a link that we can send them in order for them to see it, so the emergency responders could see what's going off at the locations.
One of the big perks of using Statewide as your central station is that we provide nationwide monitoring. So if you're an alarm installer and you're able to get a contract for a chain, we can monitor all the sites. You don't need to put it into different central stations. We're kind of a one-stop shop. So not all the states require a license. I believe a little bit over half do. However, there's also a lot of counties and jurisdictions and cities that come up that also require their own license. So it's very tricky. We have someone full-time dedicated just to make sure our licensing is up to date. And if something comes up, whether it's a city or a county that we're not licensed in and someone needs an account monitored there, of course, we will follow the appropriate steps, which is definitely not easy to make that happen. So we pride ourselves in over the years getting this accreditation and being able to monitor anywhere in the country. So a little bit more about fire. We talk about it so much because it's a major part of our business. And because we do it in New York City, I mean, just like the song, if you could make it here, you can make it anywhere. It's very difficult, the requirements here. So because we're experts in New York City, we really have grown substantially outside of New York City in the fire industry because we know it so well. Yes, our state-of-the-art technology that we showed you a little bit, our highly trained staff we spoke about, but we speak AHJ. We're able to communicate specifically with the fire department, the inspectors outside of New York City, the jurisdiction if needed, and we're able to make sure that that building is protected the way it should be. You know, we talk about personalized attention to our alarm dealers and clients, and especially in the fire world, a lot of times that's required. We have staff all weekend putting data into our system. We have managers and supervisors always available. Stephen and I can always be reached on cell phone if needed. A lot of times in fire specifically, emergencies come up, as you know, and we need to make sure we're always accessible to solve problems, number one. We want to become a solutions and continue to be, I should say, a solutions central station, where if you have an issue, you have a hurdle, we're able to solve a problem for you. So specifically, I mentioned to switch over from another central station or to switch a central station transmitter from phone lines to radio and internet, which is really becoming the norm as phone lines, become obsolete. We have a whole team that helps with that service, files the paperwork, and walks you through the process. And we've been really successful in trying to find out what are our dealers having issues with, how can we help them, and how can we make their lives easier. So we're very proud of our fire division. A couple of stats. We are the leader in the industry. There's not many FDNY approved central stations, very few. So the chart on the left, you'll see for all buildings, we have about 1/3 of all the approved systems in the 5 boroughs, which is really exciting, and it's happened very organically over the years, and we're very proud to have such a lead in that market. As far as wholesale monitoring, so out of those approved central stations, many of them just monitor their own accounts. There's not many that provide wholesale central station monitoring to their dealers as a third party. So in that market, we even have more of the market. So we're up to about 45% as far as all the wholesale fire alarm monitoring and working with fire alarm dealers. So, we take pride in it. And as we continue to grow, we continue to hire the best employees to ensure that our dealers' clients are being handled efficiently. So just to sum it up, Stephen and I just put some bullets together, but I guess 2 of the things we could talk about the most is our approach and our reputation. We've been doing this for a very long time. We're proud of our work. We're not perfect, but we try to be. We support our staff. We really try and provide the latest technology and stay ahead of the curve, as we mentioned. So we love what we're doing. We really get along well. We're brother and sister, and it's not just because we're related, but generally we agree on almost everything. And the few things that we disagree on, we're able to kind of talk it out and figure out the best solution. So, we're proud to be in this industry, and we appreciate the opportunity to share some of the highlights of Statewide with you.
Yes, and to some of the success, as Pam mentioned, and some of these bullet points that are on here, your success is our success. So we really try to do that. We want to partner with you. If you're happy, your customers are happy, and so forth. So we really try to do our best in order to make sure that happens. And we provide you with all the necessary tools and back-end support that you need in order to be successful on your own.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there's some contact information on there.
Thanks so much for that presentation. Covered a lot of ground. We need some questions sent in. Someone must have a few.
No questions.
Do you also own an installing company?
Statewide does not own an installing company. We are strictly wholesale. The only direct contract we have is with the New York City Department of Education, where we just monitor directly, only because they would not sub it out to a third party. So we deal directly with that contract, but we do not compete, nor does Statewide own any company that installs.
You mentioned a practice that you have faced, and I'm wondering how you've experienced it and what you deal with when you do it. And I'm talking about takeover of accounts. You mentioned you're there to help on a takeover of accounts. Mm-hmm. What do you do when one of your dealers is monitoring account, already has those accounts, and you get a call from someone and says, "Listen, I'm going to take these accounts over, and can you switch them over to me, or yeah, we're going to be taking them." And a few more questions by you. Turns out that, well, they don't intend to buy them, they just intend to end up with them. Now that kind of competition goes on perhaps a little bit more in the small environment of Manhattan, where you have, people juggling accounts, and I know you have a large account base in Manhattan, particularly in the fire area, where you're very prominent, the New York City Fire. Not that you see a lot of takeover in fire situations, but in Manhattan, but you do see it in other areas. So what do you do when you have two conflicting dealers that one says, I'm going to be taking the accounts of the other? Have you had that?
Probably weekly. And you could talk to any of the fire alarm dealers. We're very consistent with our approach. So when we assign an account number to a fire alarm company, it's their account number. So even if another dealer wants to come in and take that account number, they are not allowed to. Now, that being said, sometimes they will ask that me or Steven reach out to the other fire alarm company and see if they could work something out. So I almost become a mediator. Sometimes dealers say, no problem, I'll give the account number over. Most of the time they say no, let them reprogram it. But it happens pretty frequently, and we're very, very strict. You could ask any of our dealers who have worked with us on not giving information to another alarm company, because essentially, as friendly as they are, they're in competition with each other.
Okay. You have SMS texting capabilities, which interestingly enough, a lot of central stations don't have it for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what makes it available to one and not another. Maybe you could tell us. But the other thing is, can a customer, an end user, cancel an alarm system by text at your central?
Yeah, so we have SMS. So we have the enhanced SMS is what you're referring to. So basically, it's a link that the end user would get. We do have some dealers who do like that and have their customers or see if their customers want that, where they get the text message in order to cancel it. So you would get let's say, 3 people on the list that are the homeowners there. They all get a text message. They click the link and they can cancel it. They can also click another option in order to actually dispatch. And the dispatch will override it, meaning if the first person hits cancel and the second person gets it afterwards and hits dispatch, it regenerates the alarm so we can dispatch off of it. So it's all up to the dealer if they want to use that service or not, but we do offer it.
Is that an add-on to your basic charge?
No, it's no additional charge for it.
I don't know. Did you cover pricing? Is that something you wanted to cover? I don't know. That didn't come up.
No, we didn't cover pricing, but if anyone is interested, please reach out to us and we'll send something over to them with it. But SMS is included in all our packages.
As you probably know, because you do know, remote monitoring is becoming a big issue, whether central station operators are working from home or in a central station secured facility. What policy does Statewide have on that issue?
So of course this came out with COVID going around, and so as soon as COVID started, really, especially here in New York where it was running rampant, we had to decide, all right, what are we going to do if we have to leave the office? At the time, we didn't have redundant facilities also. So if someone had an outbreak within our main location, what do we do? So we took the stance, I think as most central stations did, and said, okay, we got to prepare for this. And the way we prepared for it is getting laptops, VPNs, getting it ready that an operator could bring a laptop home with a call, with a PBX, a phone, and be able to do everything remotely. Luckily, we were able to mitigate stuff within the central station. We moved people to different offices, we spread people out, and we never had to go to that route. We tried as much as possible to stay away from that. Multiple cleanings, I think we're doing 3 cleanings a day to make sure we stayed away from that. So although we were able to do the remote, we never went to remote, and we still don't. We don't have any operators doing any remote service at all. We just feel within the industry, there's so many important things. I mean, we monitor banks, we monitor jewelry stores, we monitor schools, we monitor schools for active shooting. God forbid a not as supervised, I'm not gonna say unsupervised because there is some technology out there that can make it supervised, makes a mistake or is distracted. It's just something that we never want to go to and keep everything in-house. That being said, we are still prepared just in case we ever do need to go remote and something like COVID happens again, we can take that do that option, but it would be a last resort always.
Just one follow-up comment too, the FDNY does not allow it. So that's important to know too. If you're an FDNY approved central station, they do not allow at-home monitoring.
Well, they don't allow remote monitoring for New York City Fire, or they won't
Correct.
allow you to have remote
Correct.
monitoring at all.
New York City Fire, which is really a nice chunk of our business as well, and all of our employees are cross-trained. So luckily, we were very well prepared for this and had a lot of options at the same time simultaneously that we didn't have to go that route.
Have you heard anything about New York City Fire Department revisiting that decision on allowing remote operators? Do you know if they're considering some kind of change, or are you giving us the latest change?
Last I heard, which was pretty recent, they're very adamant about not allowing that change. So my guess would be no, they're pretty strict. You know, in the event of potentially another major issue, they may revisit that, but that's their current stance on it.
Steve, and maybe you, Pam, are active in UL, and you're on a committee, and the Monitoring Association. Do you know whether there is a push now to permit remote operators, and not only remote, but remote outside the United States? Do you know if that's an issue that's being bandied around by the Monitoring Association, or perhaps UL? Anybody supporting that?
Well, of course, we don't support it. Since COVID, it has been more of a discussion, and new things are coming up. I believe UL might eventually allow it with certain ways of doing it, like a secured VPN and a camera, something like that. I know they're still actively looking at it and seeing if there's a way that you can do remote monitoring. So it is a discussion within UL. TMA hasn't really talked about it too much, and not going guidance either way on that.
Is it possible that UL is going to buck the Defense Department and other local governmental agencies and municipalities that prohibit monitoring of their facilities outside of the United States by operators outside of the United States?
Well, I believe those local, like for instance, New York City Fire, your local AHJ, they usually make the rules over state federal law or more of what UL is. For instance, fire department requires on top of what UL requires. So it's going to be hard for, and I don't see it happening if a certain municipality requires non-remote monitoring. I don't see how UL is going to be able to override that in any way, or defense in any way.
Well, the federal government's Defense Department is much larger than New York City fire issues, and much larger than any municipality issue.
Exactly.
And my understanding of the Defense Department's position is not only can their agencies not be monitored by outside of the United States, anyone who does business with them can't. And that really opens up a very broad amount of people, vendors that do business with the Defense Department.
Correct, right. And there's certain UL regulations for that, for the Defense Department monitoring.
Right. So for you, so I don't see how UL is going to come up with some regulations that say you want to be Central Station certified. No problem. You can have remote. Your monitors could be located anywhere you want, and maybe your facility needs to be near them somewhere, or maybe your facility needs to be just in the United States.
Yeah, it's the oversight. Even if it's the United States, it's the oversight. You're not getting that same oversight as you do with an operator in a seat at your central station, and that's the biggest reason we decided not to do it, because we're not going to have that oversight. I mean, it only takes one mistake to cause a tragic accident and cause a life to change or property. I always tell my operators, you can do it 99% of the time. That one time is not good enough. You can't do it 99% of the time in our industry. You almost have to be perfect. And we strive to that. Of course, that's not always the case. but we feel we have more control over the situation when the operators are within the facility and we can talk with them as opposed to remote.
Without giving away too much of what I actually think, I agree with you. But what I'd like to know, because you're the expert, not me, what is it? Because yesterday we heard from other experts that they do allow remote monitoring and they think it's great. They think it's beneficial. They think it's easier to get operators. They think it's easier. They think the supervision of the remote operator is no different, no matter where they are, than if they were sitting in their facility. Now, number one, is that possible? Number two, is it practical? And number three, you've decided not to do it. So can you elaborate on that?
Well, you're right. It's easier. It's easier to get operators, of course. I mean, so if it's going to be easier, some central stations might want to get operators easy. It's very hard to hire good operators. So you might be able to get a better operator doing it remotely because it's easier that way than trying to go for 3 or 4 candidates that are coming to your office. So I get the easier part of it. And I'm not going to speak to other centrals, but if they think it's the same supervision as having someone eyes on and at the location, it's their perspective. I just totally disagree with it.
And just to add on to that, there's the safety aspect, you know, the man traps, the way our doors lock, the panic buttons, you know, if they're required, let's say we had an employee work from home and they're required to be alone, how do we know they're not living with a criminal who's in the other room on site looking at this information? There's too many variables that we're just not comfortable with at this point.
And that's a good word, too many variables. We don't know what we don't know sometimes. So we can try to monitor as much as possible. When you can have a controlled environment, I don't think anyone disagrees that a controlled environment is a safer environment.
You know, of course, I'm doing this a very long time, and I have in the back of my memory a situation where a central station in the city, it's no longer around, but it was a central station in the city that was actually compromised. They had a break-in at the central station facility. The entire facility was compromised, and then they were able, obviously other people participating with these people were able to go and burglarize various customers and users of that central station.
Right.
You know, I don't know whether you've heard of it or not, or whether you know of it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know that it's that unique. I just happen to know it was one of my clients, and that it actually happened before they were.
Yeah. So how easy it is to just know an operator who's working for the central station and go in the house and do whatever you want, and now all of a sudden you're the operator. I mean, as I said, everyone's got to make their own decisions. If a central station thinks it's best for it's best for them. I'm not going to take that away. But for us, we believe that it's not.
In all fairness, back then when that occurred, and we're talking about a central station, we're not really sure what we're talking about. It wasn't homes, which had this huge facility and a whole, you know, rooms and rooms of a McCullough loop machinery and things like that. But it could have been a small room with 3 or 4 people sitting around a kitchen table with a receiver in the middle, and that was it. That's what got caught. You know, I don't know what the central station looked like in those days. Central stations looked a lot different. You started in 2001, so I don't know what you looked like.
They look different, but UL has had pretty good standards of security for a while. So even though they might have looked different, the UL security of that location, bars on windows, even man traps is not really required, but most central stations had the man traps. They had UL requirements, even though their central might not have looked that secure. They had those requirements to be a UL central station.
That's a UL central station.
It didn't have to be a UL central.
When I started, Stephen, and not you, but when your dad started, someone could be in the monitoring business with a phone on their night table, and now they're in the monitoring
people did it in their basement. One guy and his wife. So
Yeah.
I get it.
Ken, you bring up a good point. If a dealer never visited their central station, they should, because I'm sure those still exist, and many of them exist throughout the country. So it's still the same thing as at-home monitoring, to your point.
So, that actually leads me to another issue, which is there are lots of central stations. Dealers have lots of choices where to go. It's true they make an initial decision and they tend to stick with it unless a problem arises. But how do they actually select one central station over another? Why would someone come to Statewide instead of being at a different location? Why would they take the trouble to move from their location to come to Statewide? So those are two different categories of alarm companies, obviously. One, getting started and deciding where am I going to put my accounts as I grow, and another one that says I'm a company, I already have, whether it's 50 accounts or 5,000 accounts. Where am I going to be best served? Where are my customers going to be best served? How do I select one company over another? Why should I go to this one or that one? And before you answer, of course, what plays a role? Human interaction plays a big role. Well, I met the owner of this company. He's a real nice guy, and he took me out to dinner. And wow, I loved him. I'm going to that central station. I'm going to go there. Or this central station has the greatest convention. They invited me, and they paid for me to go and meet my family. And what a great time we had. So that's a good place to go. But what you're experienced in this, you have a central station, you run it, you've had retail operations as well. Why a particular central station? Really focus on what someone should be looking at.
Top 3 reasons are service, knowledge, and technology. As far as our new dealers that come in, service, just like you said, that face-to-face, Steve and I are available, our cell phones, our managers, we're on top of our game, our operators, our aces. Technology, always staying ahead of the curve. And of course, knowledge. They want to go to a trusted partner that they feel comfortable with, that they could gain information from and learn from. So those are the top 3 reasons. Steven, I don't know if you want to expand on that, but why we get dealers.
Those are them, and options too. You want to make sure your central station has all the options and bells and whistles that you want for your customers. You never know when you're going to go into a new resident or a new building and they want this, or they want this type of monitoring, and they want video, they want access control, let's say, or can you monitor their heat pump and it just sends a text message? Can you do that? We want to make sure that we offer all the technology in that way where they have options. You're not tied in where Essential is like, oh, we can only accept this. So that's very important also.
Let me tell you the complaints that I will get. How do I figure into this mix? Okay, well, a dealer will call me up and they'll say, I'm having a problem with this central station. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the problem? Well, I have a particular account. They messed it up. They can't get it straight, or this or that. And that's number one. Number 2, they billed me for 80 accounts, and I tried to show them I only have 70. And they just keep billing me, and they owe me the money, and they said if I don't pay, I'm done. Okay, and very often, so then they'll come to me. What am I supposed to do? Or I want to move. How do I get my data out of the central station, as opposed to to them just shutting me off because I told them I want to move? So these are issues that a dealer might have in a central station. And you know what? It's just like a partnership. It's just like a marriage. You go into it and you're rarely thinking about what could go wrong and how do I get out of it. You're not thinking that when you're being romanced into the relationship. So I have found that access to the upper echelon, the top of the operation, is vital. So my question to you both is, are the two of you accessible to handle those kinds of issues when your management level, whatever, upper, lower, whatever you want to call them, they have a set way of doing things, very little discretion how to handle things. And so someone having an issue really needs to reach someone who can say, I can not only bend the rules, I make the rules, so I can do this because this is what makes sense for you. I want to make sure that the two of you are accessible, which I know you are, by the way, so I'm asking a loaded question here. But I can't tell you how vital that is in a central station operation. And a lot of dealers don't really know it. And you would be surprised how many dealers cannot get close to the top of a central station management. They can't even get close, and it's just, nah, we can't do it. We can't do it. Can't help you. Can't help you. Can't help you. You know, call back tomorrow. That is a really bad issue. I know you don't have it. You can mention it. You can answer me. I don't think I asked the question. I think I made a speech.
Well, yes, we'll just answer yes, you're right. No, yes, me and Pam are very accessible. It's hard because, as you said, as we continue to grow, we are doing a lot of other stuff, and there's a lot of responsibilities for it. But dealers know they can reach out to us with it. And for your question, like why dealers move, it's usually service. I would say more than anything else. There's other obstacles sometimes too that are out of your control, even though you try to do it best you can. Things that we try to educate our dealers on, of for instance, third-party phone carriers and stuff like that there could be issues with, and we try to work with those carriers to make things work better. But some things are out of our control, and dealers sometimes don't understand that, so they might get frustrated on that. We try to trade as much as possible, but we're always accessible as much as possible to our dealers, whether it be cell phone, email, phone call, etc.
Yeah, cell phone specifically, and I appreciate those words, Ken. They can reach out to us at any time. Steve and I are going to take a call on vacation. We'll take a call on a Saturday night. And even if we need to bring in our managers to help solve the problem, we do our best to solve the problem, and we'll always take that phone call, which is really important.
It is. Here's looks like the last question. Are you experiencing challenges finding qualified operators? I would imagine yes, like everyone else.
We are, but not as bad. So we hired an HR person a year ago to specifically focus on that. And I have to say, we've had a lot of luck. Yes, the turnover rate, you know, every now and then will peak. But generally, we've been finding very good operators. And I think because of our HR system, our training program, we haven't had as much turnover as other central stations because we have the right systems in place.
And don't forget, it's not just operators now. Central stations are almost becoming a software company in a way, where you could do everything online. You have to make sure signal traffic is coming in, everything is ones and zeros. So also hiring IT, software developers and stuff like that is something new almost to the industry. I mean, you talk to any of the big central stations, and I mean, 20 years ago, you say, how many software developers are? Software developers, I don't have any. Some big central stations have 30, 40 software developers now. So it's also trending towards other besides operators.
Maybe it's just that you're on an island like Alcatraz and they can't go in.
We don't let anyone off.
Honestly, Ken, and they like us. I mean, not to, you know, but it's a nice environment. We're stern, but we're friendly. We're human beings. So I think we're able to get back employees who leave for other careers. And then they don't want to stay in that career, and they come back and they move up with us, and it's a very nice employees that we have here.
Well, I think
we start at 150 an hour, so it's easy.
Yeah, in all fairness, I can say that statewide, which is growing and is certainly staying on top of technology and employing technology, it's available to them. So it has big central station technology, let's say, but it certainly still has a family environment which is very important to a lot of, to most, I think, alarm companies, not just a lot, most of them, I would say. Some maybe they don't care, but a lot it is. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for getting on today. I want to thank Pam and Steve for their presentation, and I'll give you one last
everyone,
second.
And Ken, thank you very much also.
One last second for questions if you have it. I didn't want to cut everybody off. I don't see any coming in yet. And Pam and Steve, I'll give you the last word in case you want to plug my contracts or something like that.
You sell contracts?
Ken, I will say another service we offer is I link up frequently with dealers' clients, and I explain to them your wording and help them realize that they should sign this contract without making changes. So it's another service that we do offer. But thank you. I really appreciate this. I think it's nice just to be able to present statewide, and we've come a long way. We like what we do, and we want to keep moving forward and growing together. So contact us. Stephen has an extra E, I noticed in this.
Yeah, I know, but it got off the screen quick enough that no one even saw it.
So,
yes, statewide, right, I see it. Yeah.
Oh, it's still on the screen?
Yeah,
yes.
well, even though Steve can't spell, make sure you just put statewide. Okay. All right,
Yes, and Ken,
everybody.
thank you very much. And I mean, if you're not using Ken's contracts, you're using the wrong contract, in my
All right.
opinion. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I'm going to sign off now.